When my twin sister Rebecca walked into my home that Saturday afternoon, I thought she needed help. She looked stressed, exhausted. But then she turned to my husband and said 6 words that changed everything. Daniel, Rachel is having an affair. She had photos. She had dates. She had a name. There was just one problem. I had never met the man in those pictures. And that was only the beginning of the nightmare. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows of my home in Portland, Oregon, casting a warm glow on the granite countertops I had picked out 5 years ago when Daniel and I renovated this place. It was a beautiful Saturday in March 2024, and I was making pancakes for my daughter Sophie, who was spending the weekend with us before heading back to college in Seattle. "Mom, these are amazing," Sophie said, her mouth full of blueberry pancakes. At 19, she was the spitting image of me at that age, with the same auburn hair and green eyes that ran in our family. "Don't talk with your mouth full," I teased, pouring her more orange juice. "You're in college now. You should have better manners." She laughed, and the sound filled me with joy. After years of struggling with infertility, Sophie had been our miracle baby, born after 3 rounds of IVF and countless prayers. She was everything to us. Daniel walked into the kitchen, already dressed for his morning jog. At 50, my husband still looked incredibly fit, his salt and pepper hair only making him more distinguished. He kissed the top of my head before grabbing his water bottle. "Your sister called," he said casually. "She wants to come over this afternoon to discuss something important." My heart did a little flip. Rebecca and I had always been close, closer than most twins. We finished each other's sentences, felt each other's pain, and celebrated each other's victories as if they were our own. But lately, something had felt off between us. "Did she say what it was about?" I asked. Daniel shrugged. She sounded a bit stressed. "Maybe it's about her job." Rebecca worked as a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley in downtown Portland. She had always been the more ambitious one, while I had chosen to be a high school art teacher, prioritizing time with Sophie over a high-powered career. Our choices had never been a source of conflict before, but recently I'd noticed a sharpness in her comments about my simple life. "I hope everything's okay," Sophie said. "Aunt Becca has been acting weird lately." "Weird how?" I asked, suddenly alert. Sophie shrugged. "I don't know, just different. When I saw her last month, she kept asking me questions about you and Dad, about your relationship, your finances, stuff like that. It felt kind of invasive." A small knot of unease formed in my stomach, but I pushed it away. Rebecca was my twin, my best friend. Whatever was bothering her, we would work through it together like we always had. That afternoon, Rebecca arrived at exactly 2 p.m. She was dressed impeccably as always, in a designer blazer and tailored pants that screamed success. But when I hugged her, I noticed she'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes that even makeup couldn't hide. "Becca, are you okay?" I asked, leading her to the living room. "You look exhausted." She gave me a tight smile. "I'm fine, just busy at work." "Is Daniel here?" "He's in his study." "Should I get him?" "Yes, please. This concerns both of you." The formality in her voice unsettled me, but I called Daniel down. He joined us on the couch, his hand automatically finding mine, a gesture of unity that had sustained us through 22 years of marriage. Rebecca sat across from us, her designer handbag clutched in her lap like a shield. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was cold, completely unlike the warm, loving sister I knew. "I need to tell you something that's going to be difficult to hear," she began. "Daniel, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Rachel has been having an affair." The world stopped. I stared at my sister, certain I had misheard her. "What?" Daniel's hand tightened around mine. "Rebecca, what are you talking about?" Rebecca pulled out her phone and began showing us photos. Photos of me at various locations around Portland, restaurants I'd been to, coffee shops I frequented. But in these photos, I wasn't alone. There was a man, someone I'd never seen before in my life, and the images were taken from angles that made it look like we were intimate, laughing together, holding hands. "These photos are edited," I said immediately, my voice shaking. "Becca, I don't even know who that man is." "His name is Marcus Webb," Rebecca said, her voice steady and accusatory. "He's a photographer you met at that art gallery opening 6 months ago." "Don't lie to me, Rachel. Don't insult my intelligence." Daniel was looking at the photos, his face pale. Rachel, Daniel, I swear to God, I have never cheated on you. I don't know who that man is. These photos are fake. My voice rose in panic. Becca, why are you doing this? Rebecca's eyes filled with crocodile tears. I'm doing this because I love you both. Daniel, you deserve to know the truth. And Rachel, you need help. I think you're having some kind of breakdown because you're clearly in denial. I'm not in denial. This is insane. I turned to Daniel, desperate for him to believe me. You know me. You know I would never do this. But Daniel's expression had shifted from shock to something else, something that looked like doubt. And that terrified me more than anything. How long have you known about this? He asked Rebecca quietly. About 3 months, she replied. I struggled with whether to tell you. I didn't want to break up your family, but I couldn't keep this secret anymore. It was eating me alive. I felt like I was drowning. Daniel, please, look at me. You've known me for 25 years. Do you really think I'm capable of this? He stood up, running his hands through his hair. I need some air. I need to think. Daniel, wait. I reached for him, but he pulled away. Just give me some space, Rachel, he said, and the coldness in his voice shattered something inside me. After he left the room, I turned on Rebecca. What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you make up something like this? Rebecca stood, gathering her things with an almost serene expression. I'm not making anything up. I'm trying to save Daniel from more hurt. The truth is, Rachel, you've been unhappy in your marriage for years. Everyone can see it except you. That's not true, isn't it? She tilted her head, studying me like I was a specimen under glass. You settled for a simple life, a simple man, a simple career, and now you're middle-aged and realizing what you've missed. I understand, Rachel. I really do. But you can't destroy Daniel in the process of finding yourself. Get out, I whispered, my whole body shaking. Get out of my house. Rebecca left without another word, and I collapsed on the couch, my mind reeling. How could this be happening? How could my own sister, my twin, accuse me of something so horrible? That night, Daniel slept in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. The next few weeks were a living nightmare. Despite my protests, despite showing Daniel our phone records proving I'd never contacted this Marcus Webb person, despite my desperate pleas, the damage was done. Rebecca's poison had seeped into our marriage, creating cracks where there had been solid foundation. I want to believe you, Daniel said one night, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But those photos, Rachel, they look so real. They're doctored. I insisted for the 100th time. Please, let's hire a digital forensics expert. They can prove these images are fake. And if they're not, what if there's an explanation you're not remembering? The implication stung. You think I'm lying? Or crazy? I think I don't know what to think anymore. Rebecca continued her campaign of destruction with surgical precision. She called Daniel regularly, feeding him more evidence of my supposed affair. She told our mother that she was worried about me, that I seemed unstable. She even approached Sophie at college. Sophie called me crying. Mom, Aunt Becca came to Seattle. She sat me down and told me about the affair. She said she wanted me to hear it from family before someone else told me. Sophie, baby, it's not true. None of it is true. I know, Mom. I told her she was crazy. I know you would never cheat on Dad. Her voice broke. But why is she doing this? Why would she lie? I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly don't know. But I was starting to suspect. And the more I thought about it, the more pieces fell into place. Rebecca had always been competitive, even as children. When I got the lead in the school play, she quit drama altogether. When I got engaged to Daniel, she made snide comments about how I was settling. When Sophie was born after our fertility struggles, Rebecca's congratulations had felt hollow. But it wasn't until I was going through old papers in my home office that I found what I was looking for. A letter from my father's attorney, dated just before Dad passed away 2 years ago. The letter confirmed what Dad had told me privately before his death. He was leaving me his property in Lake Oswego, a beautiful waterfront home worth over $2 million. Dad had said he wanted me to have it because I had always been there for him during Mom's cancer treatment, because I had sacrificed my own career ambitions to help care for them both. Rebecca had been furious when she found out. We'd had a huge fight at the funeral, our first real conflict in decades. She'd accused me of manipulating Dad, of playing the martyr to win his favor. I'd been so hurt by her words that I'd actually considered giving her half the property just to preserve our relationship. But Daniel had stopped me. Your father made his choice for a reason. He'd said, you earned that inheritance by being there when it mattered. Don't let guilt make you give away what's rightfully yours. Now, looking at that letter again, I understood. Rebecca wasn't just trying to ruin my marriage. She was trying to destroy me completely so that I would be vulnerable, dependent, and willing to give her what she believed she deserved. The property, the money, the life she thought I didn't deserve to have. I needed proof, and I knew exactly where to find it. I hired a private investigator named Maria Santos. She was a former police detective in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately put me at ease. I've seen cases like this before, Maria said when I showed her the photos Rebecca had presented. Deepfake technology has gotten incredibly sophisticated, but there are always digital fingerprints if you know where to look. Within a week, Maria had her preliminary findings. The photos were indeed manipulated. The man in the images, Marcus Webb, was a real person, a photographer in Portland. But he had never met me. His image had been purchased from a stock photo site, and sophisticated AI software had been used to insert him into photos of me going about my daily life. The question is, who created these images? Maria said, that requires specific software and skills. Can you find out? I'm already on it. I've got a digital forensics expert examining the metadata. We'll trace this back to its source. While Maria worked on the digital evidence, I decided to confront the situation from another angle. I reached out to Marcus Webb directly. He was surprised to hear from me. Ems Morrison, I'm aware that my image has been used in some kind of scheme, he said when we met at a neutral coffee shop downtown. I've been trying to figure out who did this and why. My reputation as a photographer could be seriously damaged. I'm so sorry you've been dragged into this, I said. I think my sister created these images to make it look like we were having an affair. Marcus frowned. Your sister? That's Rebecca Morrison, right? The financial advisor. My heart skipped. You know her. She's a client of mine. Or was. I did a photography session for her company's annual report about 6 months ago. He pulled out his phone and showed me photos from that shoot. That's when she would have had access to my images. She specifically requested the rights to use them for promotional purposes. There it was. The connection. Rebecca had planned this months in advance. Would you be willing to testify to this if it comes to that? I asked. Absolutely. I don't take kindly to people stealing my work and using it to ruin lives. Armed with this information, I went home and finally told Daniel everything I'd discovered. I showed him Maria's preliminary report, Marcus Webb's testimony, and the timeline of Rebecca's planning. Daniel sat in silence for a long time after I finished. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I should have believed you from the start. I should have known you better than to doubt you even for a second. I took his hands in mine. She's my twin sister. She knows exactly how to manipulate situations, how to make lies look like truth. You're human, Daniel. You were presented with what looked like evidence, and you reacted like anyone would. But I hurt you, I doubted us. Yes, you did. And that hurt. But I understand why. And I forgive you. The question now is, what do we do about Rebecca? Daniel's expression hardened. We expose her. We make sure everyone knows what she's done. But I wasn't so sure. Part of me still remembered the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who held my hand during our first day at a new school, the young woman who was my maid of honor at my wedding. What had happened to that person? When had she become this monster? Maria's full report came back 2 weeks later. The evidence was damning. The photos had been created using advanced deepfake software. The digital trail led back to Rebecca's home computer. And there were even deleted emails between Rebecca and a freelance photo editor she'd hired to make the images look more authentic. But Maria had found something else, something that shocked me to my core. Your sister has been embezzling from her clients, Maria said, spreading financial documents across my kitchen table. Small amounts at first, but over the past year, she's stolen nearly $400,000. She's been covering her tracks, but not well enough. I think she was getting desperate. Desperate for what? Money to cover her losses. Your sister has a serious gambling problem, Rachel. I traced her credit card statements. She's been going to the Indian casino in Spirit Mountain at least twice a week for the past 2 years. She's in debt up to her eyeballs. Everything clicked into place. Rebecca didn't just want my inheritance out of jealousy. She needed it. She was drowning financially and saw my property as her lifeline. If I had divorced Daniel or had a mental breakdown, she probably thought I'd be vulnerable enough to sign over the Lake Oswego property to her. I said slowly. Maybe even claim I needed financial help and give her access to my accounts. Maria nodded grimly. Exactly. She was setting up a scenario where you'd be too emotionally destroyed to think clearly, and as your closest family member, she'd be the one to swoop in and help you. I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated destruction of my entire life. What do we do now? Daniel asked. He'd been listening to everything, his face growing darker with each revelation. We confront her, I said, but we do it right. Maria, can you have all this documentation ready for the police? Already done. I've been in contact with a detective in the financial crimes unit. They're very interested in your sister's activities. That evening, I called Rebecca and asked her to meet me at our father's property in Lake Oswego, the property that had started all of this. She agreed immediately, probably thinking I was finally ready to cave to her pressure. Daniel wanted to come with me, but I asked him to stay back with Maria, monitoring everything through a wire I wore under my jacket. I needed to face Rebecca alone to understand how she could have done this to me. She was already there when I arrived, standing on the deck overlooking the lake. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected off the water. It was beautiful, and the beauty made everything feel even more surreal. Rachel, she said, turning to face me. I'm glad you called. I've been worried about you. Have you? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Or have you been worried that your plan wasn't working fast enough? Her expression flickered, just for a moment, before settling back into concern. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The fake photos. The lies about an affair. All of it designed to destroy my marriage and my credibility so I'd be desperate enough to give you what you want. This property. Rebecca's mask finally slipped. You don't deserve it, she hissed. You never did. You spent your whole life playing it safe, being the good daughter, the perfect wife, the devoted mother. Meanwhile, I worked my ass off to make something of myself. And what did I get? Nothing. Dad left me nothing because I wasn't there to hold his hand while he died. You weren't there because you chose not to be, I said quietly. No one forced you to prioritize your career over family. That was your choice. And it was your choice to be mediocre. She shot back. You could have been anything, Rachel. We had the same opportunities, the same intelligence, the same potential. But you settled. You became a high school art teacher instead of a real artist. You married Daniel instead of finding someone who could actually push you to be better. You wasted your entire life on being comfortable. Her words stung because part of me had wondered the same things over the years. Had I settled? Had I chosen the easy path? But then I thought about Sophie's laugh over pancakes. I thought about Daniel's hand finding mine in the dark. I thought about the former students who still sent me messages about how my class had changed their lives, how I'd helped them find their creative voice. I didn't settle, I said firmly. I chose. I chose a life filled with love and meaning over a life filled with money and status. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because you made the opposite choice, and you're miserable. I'm not miserable, but her voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw past her anger to the pain underneath. Becca, why didn't you just ask me for help? If you're in financial trouble, if you have a gambling problem, I would have helped you. You're my sister, my twin. We shared a womb. I would have done anything for you. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the girl I used to know, the vulnerability in her eyes, the desperate need for connection. But then she hardened again. I don't need help. I need what's rightfully mine. Dad should have left me something. You manipulated him into giving you everything. That's not true. And you know it. Dad made his own choice based on who showed up when it mattered. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. Well, congratulations, Rachel. You won. You got the house. You kept your perfect marriage. You get to maintain your illusion that you're somehow better than me because you chose love over money. But you know what? That house is the only real thing you have. Without it, You're just another middle-aged woman with a mediocre life. Maybe, I said, but at least it's my life. Mine and Daniel's and Sophie's. We built it together with honesty and love. Can you say the same? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned back to face the lake, her shoulders rigid with tension. The police are going to arrest you, I said quietly. I have evidence of the doctored photos. Marcus Webb is willing to testify. And there's proof of your embezzlement. Rebecca rolled around, her eyes wide. You wouldn't. I don't want to. But I can't let you hurt anyone else the way you've hurt me. You need help, Becca. Real help. And maybe this is the only way you'll get it. You're really going to turn me in? Your own sister? You tried to destroy my life. You were willing to ruin my marriage, devastate my daughter, and steal my peace of mind, all for money. What choice do you leave me? For the first time since this nightmare began, Rebecca actually looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw her see me, not as competition or as an obstacle, but as a person, as her sister. I'm sorry, she whispered, and tears finally spilled down her cheeks. Real tears this time. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I don't know what happened to me. When did I become this person? I wanted to go to her, to hug her like I used to when we were children, but I couldn't. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. I don't know, I said honestly, but I hope you find your way back. Two police cars pulled up the driveway. Detective Maria Santos had called them when she heard Rebecca's partial confession through the wire. Rebecca didn't resist as they read her rights and led her away. She looked at me one last time before they put her in the car. I love you, she mouthed. I love you too, I whispered back. And despite everything, it was true. The next 6 months were a journey of healing that tested every ounce of strength I had. Rebecca was charged with embezzlement, identity theft, and fraud. She pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, 3 years in prison with mandatory treatment for her gambling addiction. The day of her sentencing, I sat in the courtroom gallery. Daniel offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I stood up. Your Honor, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Rebecca Morrison is my twin sister. We shared everything growing up, our clothes, our friends, our dreams. I thought I knew her better than anyone, and maybe that's why her betrayal hurt so much, because it showed me that I didn't really know her at all, or maybe she didn't know herself. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Rebecca sat at the defendant's table, her head bowed, wearing a simple gray suit that made her look small and vulnerable. What she did to me was cruel and calculated. She tried to destroy my marriage, my peace of mind, and my sense of self. For months, I questioned my own sanity because my sister, my twin, told convincing lies about who I was and what I'd done. That kind of psychological damage doesn't heal quickly. The judge nodded, making notes. But I also know that Rebecca is sick. Addiction is a disease, and it drove her to make terrible choices. I don't excuse what she did, but I understand that she needs help, not just punishment. And I hope that whatever sentence you decide will include treatment that will help her find her way back to being the person I once knew. After I finished, Rebecca turned to look at me. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she mouthed two words: thank you. The healing process extended far beyond that courtroom. Daniel and I started marriage counseling to work through the trust issues that Rebecca's scheme had created. Our therapist, Dr. Ellen Park, helped us understand that betrayal trauma isn't rational. Even though Daniel now knew the truth, I still had moments of insecurity, wondering if he fully believed me, if he truly trusted me again. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, Dr. Park explained during one of our sessions. It's like a bone that's been broken. Even after it heals, it takes time before you stop protecting it, before you trust it to bear weight again. Slowly, painfully, Daniel and I found our way back to each other. He planned a surprise vow renewal ceremony for our 23rd anniversary, just the two of us and Sophie on a beach in Cannon Beach. As we stood with our feet in the sand, the Pacific Ocean roaring behind us, we pledged our love again, but this time with the wisdom that comes from surviving a crisis together. I promise to always believe in you, Daniel said, tears in his eyes, to trust in the woman I know you are, even when outside voices try to tell me differently. I promise to be patient as we heal, I replied. To remember that your doubt came from manipulation, not from lack of love, and to rebuild what we had into something even stronger. Sophie stood as our witness, crying happy tears and recording the whole thing on her phone. My daughter had been my rock through everything, never once doubting me, always standing firmly in my corner. Mom, she told me afterward as we walked along the beach, watching you stand up for yourself, fight for the truth, and still find compassion for Aunt Becca. That taught me more than any college course ever could. You showed me what real strength looks like. My relationship with my mother was more complicated. When she learned what Rebecca had done, she was devastated. Mom had always tried to treat us equally, to never show favoritism, and now she struggled with conflicting emotions, anger at Rebecca for what she'd done, but also maternal instinct to protect her daughter, even the one who had committed terrible crimes. I keep asking myself where I went wrong, Mom said one afternoon as we had tea in my kitchen. How did I raise a daughter capable of doing what Rebecca did? You didn't do anything wrong, Mom, I assured her. Rebecca made her own choices. Addiction is a disease, but how she chose to deal with her problems was on her, not on you. But I could see the guilt eating at her. So I made a decision. I'm going to visit Rebecca, I announced to Daniel that night. At the prison, he looked up from his book, surprised. Are you sure you're ready for that? No, I admitted. But I think it's necessary for both of us. The Oregon Women's Correctional Facility in Wilsonville was a stark, depressing place. As I went through security and waited in the visitors area, I questioned my decision. What did I hope to accomplish here? What could Rebecca possibly say that would make any of this better? When she walked into the visiting room, I barely recognized her. Prison had stripped away all her polish. Her hair, once professionally colored and styled, was now streaked with gray and pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard prison uniform, and without makeup, she looked older than her 47 years. Rachel, she said, sitting down across from me at the metal table. I didn't think you'd come. I almost didn't, I replied honestly. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many questions I wanted to ask, but none of them seemed adequate for the moment. How are you? Rebecca finally asked. I'm surviving. Healing Daniel and I are working through things. I'm glad. I know you don't believe me, but I am glad. You deserve happiness, Rachel. You always did. Then why did you try to take it away from me? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Because I was drowning, and I thought pulling you down would somehow save me. It doesn't make sense, I know, but when you're in addiction, when you're that desperate, your brain doesn't work right. All I could think about was the money, the debt, the next bet that would fix everything. When did it start? I asked. The gambling? 5 years ago. A client took me to the casino as a thank you for managing their portfolio. I won $5,000 on a slot machine my first night there. Her laugh was hollow. I should have walked away and never gone back. But that high, that rush of winning, it became the only time I felt truly alive. Everything else in my life felt gray in comparison. Why didn't you ask for help? Pride, shame, fear, all of the above. She wiped her eyes. I was supposed to be the successful one, remember? The one with the high-powered career and the impressive life. How could I admit that I was a fraud? That I was stealing from clients to feed an addiction? That I was so jealous of my own sister's happiness that I tried to destroy it? I would have helped you, I said, my voice breaking, if you had just told me the truth. I know that now, being here, going through therapy, I see so many things I couldn't see before. But at the time, all I saw was what I didn't have, and you had everything I thought I wanted. I had a different life than you, Becca. Not a better one, just different. She nodded. I'm starting to understand that. My therapist here has been helping me work through why I always measured success in terms of money and status instead of relationships and love. It goes back to Dad, I think. How he always seemed to value achievement over everything else. At least, that's what I interpreted growing up. Dad loved us both equally, I said, but he showed love differently to each of us because we were different people. I know. I spent so long being angry at him for leaving you the property, but the truth is, you earned it by being there. I wasn't there because I chose my career over family. That was my choice, and I need to own it. We talked for the full hour allowed for visiting, and by the end, something had shifted between us. The anger I'd been carrying began to soften, not disappearing entirely, but transforming into something more like grief. Grief for the relationship we'd lost, for the sister I thought I had, for all the wasted years of her fighting against her own demons. I don't know if I can fully forgive you, I told her honestly as our time came to an end. Not yet. But I want you to know that I don't hate you. And when you get out of here, when you've done the work you need to do, there might be a path back to some kind of relationship. Rebecca's eyes lit up with hope. Really? Maybe. We'll never be what we were. That maybe we can be something new, something more honest. I'd like that, she whispered. More than anything. Over the next 2 years, my life slowly returned to a new normal. Daniel and I were stronger than ever, our marriage tempered by the fire we'd walked through together. Sophie graduated from college and got a job at a nonprofit in Portland, close enough that we saw her regularly, but independent enough to build her own life. I made some changes too. I'd always loved teaching, but Rebecca's accusations about my mediocre life had planted seeds of doubt. Had I settled? Had I stopped pushing myself creatively? So I decided to test myself. I took a leave of absence from teaching and spent 6 months creating a series of paintings exploring themes of identity, betrayal, and sisterhood. It was therapeutic work, pouring all my pain and healing onto canvas. And to my surprise, a local gallery agreed to show my work. The opening night of my exhibition was both terrifying and exhilarating. As I stood in the gallery surrounded by my paintings, each one a piece of my journey through the darkness and back into the light, I felt like I was finally seeing myself clearly. Daniel stood beside me, his hand in mine, as friends, former students, and strangers moved through the space, studying my work. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. You took your pain and created something beautiful. We created something beautiful, I corrected. This wouldn't have been possible without your support, without us healing together. Sophie arrived with Marcus Webb in tow. The photographer had become a friend after everything that had happened, and he'd offered to photograph my exhibition for promotional purposes. Mom, these are incredible, Sophie said, hugging me tight. You should have been doing this all along. I don't think I was ready before, I replied honestly. Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to understand what you're capable of creating. Several of my pieces sold that night, and a few critics wrote positive reviews in local art publications. But the validation I felt wasn't really about the sales or the reviews. It was about proving to myself that I had been brave enough to try, to take a risk, to push beyond the comfortable life I'd built. I returned to teaching the following fall, but with a new perspective. I encouraged my students to take risks, to not be afraid of failure, to understand that sometimes our greatest work comes from our greatest pain. One of my students, a quiet girl named Emma who reminded me of myself at that age, stayed after class one day. Ems Morrison, she said hesitantly, I heard about what happened with your sister. My mom read an article about it in the paper. I tensed, unsure where this was going. I just wanted to say thank you, she continued, for being brave enough to fight back, and for being strong enough to forgive. My older sister and I don't get along, and watching how you handled everything, it made me think maybe we could work things out too. I felt tears prick my eyes. Emma, I hope you and your sister can find your way to each other. But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It means choosing not to let that hurt define you. I understand, she said with a maturity beyond her years. And I'm trying. Rebecca was released from prison after serving 2 years of her 3-year sentence, time reduced for good behavior and participation in addiction treatment programs. I learned about her release date from my mother, who asked if I would consider being there when Rebecca got out. I thought about it for a long time before making my decision. I'll be there, I told Mom. But I need to set clear boundaries. This doesn't mean everything is forgiven and forgotten. It means I'm willing to see if there's a path forward. The morning of Rebecca's release was gray and drizzly, typical Oregon weather. Daniel offered to come with me, but I told him this was something I needed to do alone. Mom was already waiting outside the correctional facility when I arrived, her face lined with worry and hope in equal measure. Thank you for coming, she said, hugging me tight. I know this isn't easy for you. No, it's not, I agreed. but she's still my sister, and she's done her time. When Rebecca walked through those prison gates, she looked different, not just physically, though she was thinner and her hair was completely gray now. There was something in her eyes, a humility that hadn't been there before, a brokenness that had been pieced back together differently. She saw us and stopped, as if uncertain whether to approach. Mom went to her first, embracing her daughter with tears streaming down her face. Rebecca held on to Mom like she was a lifeline, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Then she looked at me over Mom's shoulder. I walked toward her slowly. When I reached them, Rebecca pulled away from Mom and stood facing me, her hands trembling. Rachel, she began, but I held up my hand. Let's take this slow, I said. One step at a time. She nodded, understanding. One step at a time. We went to a small diner near the prison, neutral territory where we could talk. Over coffee and pie that none of us really ate, Rebecca told us about her time inside, about the therapy that had finally forced her to confront her demons, about the other women she'd met who were fighting their own battles with addiction. I joined a Gamblers Anonymous group, she said. There's one that meets at a church near where I'll be living. I've committed to going to meetings every day for the first year, and then we'll see. But I know this is a lifelong fight. The addiction doesn't just go away. Where are you going to live? I asked. There's a halfway house in Beaverton. I'll be there for the next 6 months while I look for work and get back on my feet. I know I can't work in finance anymore. Not after what I did. But I'm hoping to find something, anything honest. Mom reached across the table and took Rebecca's hand. You'll get through this, sweetheart. We'll help you. Rebecca looked at me. I don't expect anything from you, Rachel. I destroyed any right I had to your support. But I want you to know that I'm different now. I'm not the person who hurt you. I hope that's true, I said carefully. But trust is earned, not given, and it takes time. I understand. I'll spend however long it takes proving to you that I've changed. Over the following months, Rebecca did exactly that. She found a job as a cashier at a grocery store, humble work that was a far cry from her previous career, but she approached it with dignity. She attended her G meetings religiously and started volunteering at a homeless shelter on weekends. She didn't push for a relationship with me. Instead, she simply showed up consistently in her own recovery, sending me brief texts every few weeks to let me know she was still sober, still fighting, still trying to be better. How do you feel about all this? Dr. Park asked during one of my now monthly therapy sessions. Cautiously hopeful, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she's truly changed, but another part remembers how convincing she was when she was lying. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? You don't, Dr. Park said gently, and that uncertainty is something you may have to live with. But you can choose to give her the opportunity to prove herself while still maintaining healthy boundaries. 6 months after her release, Rebecca called me. I know this is a lot to ask, she said, her voice nervous. But would you consider meeting me for coffee? Just the two of us. I hesitated. We'd seen each other at family gatherings, always with other people present, always with safe distance between us. Being alone with her felt vulnerable in a way I wasn't sure I was ready for. But I also knew that true healing required taking risks. Okay, I said, but somewhere public. We met at a Starbucks near Pole's Books in downtown Portland. Rebecca was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. I remembered you like a vanilla latte, she said, pushing 1 cup toward me as I sat down. The fact that she remembered such a small detail about me, after everything, touched something in my heart. Thank you, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, and I was struck by how strange it felt. This woman who had once been able to finish my sentences now felt like a stranger. I owe you an apology, Rebecca finally said. A real one. Not the half-hearted sorry I gave you at the property that day. I've been working with my therapist on this, and she said I needed to be specific, to acknowledge exactly what I did and how it hurt you. I nodded, waiting. I deliberately tried to destroy your marriage by creating fake evidence of an affair. I exploited Daniel's love for you and his fear of losing you the way he lost his father. I manipulated situations to make you doubt your own sanity and memory. I used our mother's trust and love to turn people against you. And I did all of this knowing exactly how much pain it would cause you. Because I wanted you to be desperate enough to give me what I felt entitled to. Her voice broke, but she continued. Worst of all, I betrayed the sacred bond we shared as twins. You're my other half, and I tried to destroy you. There's no excuse for that. No amount of addiction or desperation justifies what I did to you. Tears were streaming down both our faces now. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued. I'm not even sure I deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know that I see what I did. I understand the magnitude of it, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of even a fraction of the love you once had for me. I wiped my eyes, my throat tight with emotion. Do you know what the worst part was? I asked quietly. She shook her head. It wasn't the fake photos or the lies or even the threat to my marriage. It was losing you, realizing that my twin sister, my best friend, the person I thought knew me better than anyone, hated me enough to try to destroy me. That pain was worse than anything else. I never hated you, Rebecca said urgently. I hated myself. I hated what I'd become, the choices I'd made, the life I'd wasted. And instead of dealing with that pain, I projected it onto you. I convinced myself that your happiness was the reason for my misery, when the truth was, I was the reason for my own misery. Have you really changed? He asked. Or are you just better at hiding who you are? Rebecca looked me straight in the eye. I've changed. Not completely. Not perfectly. I still have dark days where I want to gamble, where I want to escape from the reality of what I've done. But I'm learning to sit with that discomfort instead of running from it. I'm learning that real strength isn't about winning or achieving or having more than everyone else. It's about showing up every day and trying to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was raw honesty. I'm not ready to fully trust you again, I said, and I don't know if I ever will be. But I'm willing to try. Slowly, hope bloomed in Rebecca's eyes. Really? Really? But we need ground rules. You don't ask me for money, ever. You don't make assumptions about our relationship or push for more than I'm ready to give. And if you relapse, if you start gambling again or lying or manipulating, we're done. No second chances. I understand, she said quickly. And I agree to all of it. Good. Then maybe we can start by having coffee once a month, just like this. And we'll see where it goes from there. Thank you, Rachel. You don't know what this means to me. I think I do, I said softly, because even after everything, you're still my sister. And part of me still loves you, even though you hurt me. I'm choosing to believe that the person I loved is still in there somewhere, buried under all the pain and addiction, and I'm willing to give that person a chance to come back. 2 years after Rebecca's release, our family gathered at my home for Thanksgiving dinner. It was the first time we'd all been together for a holiday since the trial, and the air was thick with both tension and tentative joy. Rebecca arrived with a pumpkin pie she'd made herself and a genuine smile that reached her eyes. She'd been sober for over 4 years now, including her time in prison, and she was working as a counselor at a recovery center, helping others fight the same demons she'd battled. I never thought I'd be grateful for going to prison, she told us as we gathered around my dining table. But it saved my life. It forced me to face what I'd become and gave me the tools to become someone better. Sophie, now 23 and thriving in her nonprofit work, raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said, to Grandma for never giving up on her daughters, to Dad for standing by Mom when things got dark, to Aunt Becca for doing the hard work of changing, and to Mom for showing us all what real strength and forgiveness look like. To family, Daniel added, squeezing my hand under the table. To family, we all echoed, clinking glasses. As I looked around my table at the faces of the people I loved, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not gratitude for what we'd been through. The pain and betrayal and heartbreak were still real and valid, but gratitude for what we'd become because of it. Daniel and I were stronger, more honest with each other, more appreciative of what we had. Sophie had learned lessons about resilience and forgiveness that would serve her well in life. Mom had released the guilt she'd been carrying and learned to accept that she couldn't control her adult children's choices. And Rebecca had transformed from someone consumed by addiction and jealousy into someone committed to healing and service. After dinner, Rebecca and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, washing dishes side by side like we used to do as children. Do you remember when we were 8? Rebecca said, scrubbing a plate. And we made a pact that we'd always be best friends, no matter what? I remember, I said softly. We cut our palms with Mom's kitchen scissors and pressed them together, mixing our blood. Mom was so mad about the scissors. Rebecca laughed, then grew serious. I broke that pact in the worst possible way. Yes, you did. I agreed, not sugarcoating it. But maybe we can make a new pact now. Not as 8-year-olds who think best friends means never having conflict or problems, but as adult women who've been through hell and back. What kind of pact? A pact to always be honest, even when the truth is hard, to admit when we're struggling instead of letting pride destroy us, to understand that we're different people who want different things, and that's okay, and to remember that love isn't about keeping score or comparing lives. It's about showing up, even when it's difficult. Rebecca set down the plate she'd been washing and turned to face me, tears in her eyes. I can make that pact, and I promise to keep it this time. We hugged then, really hugged, for the first time since before everything fell apart. It wasn't the innocent embrace of children or the casual hug of people going through motions. It was the embrace of two women who had lost each other and found their way back through pain and perseverance. I love you, Ray, Rebecca whispered, using the nickname she hadn't called me since we were teenagers. I love you too, Becca, I replied, meaning it. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence, and I realized that this was what healing looked like. Not dramatic declarations or grand gestures, but quiet moments of connection. The choice to show up and try, day after day, even when it would be easier to walk away. I'm sitting on the deck of the Lake Oswego property, the same deck where I confronted Rebecca all those years ago. But today, the memory doesn't sting the way it used to. I've made peace with what happened, not by forgetting it or pretending it didn't matter, but by choosing not to let it define me. The property that started all the trouble has become something beautiful. Daniel and I decided to renovate it not as a rental property or investment, but as a family retreat center. We've opened it up to families dealing with addiction, offering them a peaceful place to come together and heal. Rebecca runs workshops here twice a month, sharing her story and facilitating group therapy sessions for families impacted by gambling addiction. Watching her work with these families, seeing the compassion and understanding she brings to their pain, I'm reminded that people really can change. Mom, the caterers are here. Sophie calls from inside. She's helping me prepare for today's event, a renewal of vows celebration for Daniel and me on our 25th wedding anniversary. This time, it's not just the two of us on a beach. It's a gathering of everyone who helped us survive our darkest time and celebrated our return to light. Maria Santos, the private investigator who uncovered the truth. Marcus Webb, the photographer who stood up for justice. Dr. Park, our therapist, and dozens of former students, friends, and family members who supported us when we needed it most. As guests arrive and the house fills with laughter and love, I catch Rebecca's eye across the room. She's talking animatedly with Sophie about the Recovery Center's new programs, and for a moment, I see the girl she used to be, full of passion and potential. She feels my gaze and looks up, giving me a smile that's both grateful and hopeful. I smile back, a silent acknowledgement of how far we've both come. Daniel finds me on the deck, slipping his arm around my waist. Are you ready, Mrs. Morrison? Ready for what? To stand up in front of all these people and promise to love me forever, even though we both know forever includes hard times and mistakes and moments when we'll hurt each other. I lean into him, breathing in his familiar scent, especially because forever includes those things. We're not promising perfection, Daniel. We're promising to keep choosing each other, keep fighting for us, keep believing in love even when it's hard. I like that version better anyway, he says, kissing the top of my head. The ceremony is simple but profound. Our friend, a retired judge, officiates. Sophie reads a poem she wrote about resilience and love. And when it's time for our vows, I speak from my heart. Daniel, 25 years ago, I promised to love you in good times and bad. I had no idea how bad could really be. But going through that darkness with you taught me that our love isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about facing it together, holding each other up when we're weak, believing in each other when belief is the only thing we have left. My voice catches, but I continue. You doubted me for a moment, and that hurt. but you fought your way back to trust. You did the hard work of healing alongside me, and that taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed, even when commitment is difficult. So today, I promise you again, I will love you in joy and in pain, in certainty and in doubt, in the ordinary moments and the extraordinary ones, because you are my partner, my best friend, and my home. Daniel's eyes are wet as he takes his turn. Rachel, you are the strongest person I know, not because you never break, but because you keep putting yourself back together. You taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's courage, that trust can be rebuilt, even after it's been shattered, and that the deepest love comes from choosing someone, not just once, but over and over again, every single day. He takes both my hands in his. I promise to keep choosing you, to listen when you speak, believe when you're telling the truth, and fight alongside you when life gets hard. I promise to love not just the parts of you that are easy to love, but the parts that are broken and healing too. Because that's what real love does. It sees all of you and says, yes, you, always you. As we seal our renewed vows with a kiss, I hear the applause and cheers of our loved ones. But what I'm most aware of is the sense of completeness I feel. Not because my life is perfect. It's not. Not because I have all the answers, I don't. But because I've learned that the best lives aren't the ones without struggle. They're the ones where we find meaning in the struggle, where we transform pain into purpose, where we choose love even when we've been given every reason not to. Later, as the sun sets over the lake and our guests mingle on the lawn, Rebecca approaches me. She's wearing a simple lavender dress, and her gray hair is styled elegantly. She looks at peace in a way I never saw before all of this happened. Thank you for inviting me, she says. I know it meant a lot to Mom, but I also know it was a risk for you. You've earned a place here, I reply honestly. You've done the work, Becca. You've changed. I'm still changing, she corrects gently. Every day. That's what recovery is. A daily choice to be better than I was yesterday. That's what life is, I say. All of us are in recovery from something. We're all trying to be better than we were. She nods, looking out at the lake. I used to think this property represented everything I'd lost, everything I'd never have. But now, see what you've done with it. How you've turned it into a place of healing. I'm grateful Dad left it to you. You were always the one who knew how to create something beautiful from pain. We're creating it together now, I remind her. Your workshops, your story, your willingness to be vulnerable with these families, that's part of what makes this place special. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for what happened. Not for what I did. I'll never be grateful for hurting you, but for what came after. For being forced to face my demons. For learning that rock bottom can be a foundation if you're willing to build on it. Me too, I admit. I'm grateful for the lessons, even though I wish they'd come differently. I'm grateful for knowing my own strength, for the depth Daniel and I found in our marriage, for understanding that forgiveness is possible, even when it seems impossible. We stand together in comfortable silence, two sisters who lost each other and found their way back, different but somehow more whole than before. Sophie joins us, linking her arms through both of ours. You know what Mom told me once? She says to Rebecca. She said that the hardest thing about what you did wasn't the betrayal itself. It was losing her twin, losing her best friend. She mourned you like you had died. Rebecca's eyes fill with tears. I'm so sorry, Sophie. You don't know how sorry I am. I know, Sophie says gently. I've watched you prove it every day for the past few years. And I've watched my mom choose forgiveness over bitterness. You've both taught me that people can change, that families can heal, and that love is stronger than we think it is. As the three of us stand there, three generations of women who've learned about strength through suffering, about grace through pain, I think about how I would tell my story if someone asked. I wouldn't start with Rebecca's betrayal or the fake photos or the horror of watching my life nearly unravel. I would start here, in this moment, surrounded by love and proof that healing is possible. Because the truth is, my story isn't about what my sister tried to take from me. It's about what I discovered I had all along. Resilience, courage, and a capacity for forgiveness that I never knew existed. I am Rachel Morrison. I'm 50 years old now, and I've survived betrayal that nearly destroyed me. But more importantly, I've learned that survival isn't enough. We're meant to thrive, to grow, to become more than our traumas. And standing here, watching the people I love celebrate love itself, I know with absolute certainty that I have done exactly that. My name is Rachel Morrison, and this is my story of loss, pain, healing, and ultimately, redemption. Not just mine, but ours, my family's, my sister's, and maybe, if you're listening to this story, yours too. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that we're all capable of both tremendous harm and tremendous healing. The question isn't whether we'll face darkness, because we will. The question is, when we do, will we let it consume us, or will we use it to become more compassionate, more understanding, more fully human? I chose light, and every day, I keep choosing it. That's not the end of my story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter, one where I get to write my own narrative, surrounded by people who love me, in a life I've consciously chosen to build, one day, one choice, one act of forgiveness at a time.